Before we begin, subscribe and tell us in the comments what city or country you're watching from. Tonight, a billionaire's fiancé will mock a curvy black maid's dress in front of an entire ballroom, then watch in disbelief as the billionaire crosses the floor, offers the maid his hand, and asks her for the first dance of the night. That dress was made for someone half your size. The laughter around the champagne table died instantly. Imani Reed stood beneath the crystal chandeliers of the Ashford Winter Ball, holding a tray of sparkling water. She was 34, black, curvy, confident, with deep brown skin and natural curls pinned elegantly above her shoulders. For 7 years, Imani had worked at Ashford House. She knew which antique doors stuck in winter, which guests required allergy-safe meals, and which staff members needed an extra shift before rent was due. Tonight, however, she was not wearing her usual black and white uniform. She wore a deep emerald evening dress. Simple, elegant, floor-length, and apparently enough to make billionaire Julian Ashford's fiancée furious. Camille Laurent stepped closer. Her silver gown glittered beneath the ballroom lights. "Did you misunderstand the invitation?" Camille asked. Imani kept her voice calm. "No. Then why are you dressed like a guest?" Mrs. Ashford invited the senior household staff to attend tonight's final hour. Julian's grandmother, Eleanor Ashford, had created the tradition 20 years earlier. Every winter ball ended with the employees who had organized the event joining the guests for dinner and dancing. Camille smiled coldly. Senior staff were invited to attend. "Nobody told you to dress like you were competing with the women in this room." Several guests looked away. Imani set down the tray. "I'm not competing with anyone." Camille's eyes traveled over her figure. "You certainly chose an ambitious dress." Imani understood exactly what she meant. "Do you have a problem with the color?" "The color is beautiful." Camille paused. "The problem is what's inside it." A few guests gasped. Imani's cheeks warmed, but she refused to lower her eyes. Across the ballroom, the orchestra continued playing. Julian had not yet arrived. His flight from Chicago had been delayed, and Camille had spent the last hour behaving as though Ashford House already belonged to her. Imani folded her hands. "Was there something you actually needed from me?" Camille laughed. "See? That attitude." "What attitude?" "The confidence." Imani almost smiled. "You want me to apologize for wearing a dress. I want you to understand proportion. Of the dress. Of your place." That landed harder. Imani had heard versions of it before. Not from Camille alone. Too loud. Too curvy. Too noticeable. Too confident for someone whose job required service. Imani had stopped shrinking years ago. Camille leaned closer. "Go upstairs and change." "No." The answer was quiet. But everyone heard it. Camille blinked. "Excuse me?" Mrs. Ashford personally approved this dress. That was true. Eleanor had seen it 2 weeks earlier and insisted Imani wear it. Camille's mouth tightened. "Eleanor is 82. She approves everything that makes her feel rebellious. She approved me attending. I am telling you to change. And I'm declining." Camille's smile disappeared completely. "You are an employee. Until midnight. Then I'm an invited guest." A man near the orchestra hid a grin behind his glass. Camille noticed. Humiliation flashed across her face. Then she reached for Imani's shoulder. Before Imani could move, Camille pulled the thin emerald wrap away from her. The sudden motion exposed the elegant sleeveless cut of the dress. Camille held the wrap up like evidence. "There. Now everyone can see why this was a mistake." Imani stared at her. For the first time, anger replaced embarrassment. "You should give that back." "Why? Are you suddenly modest?" "No." Imani stepped closer. "Because it belongs to my mother." Camille's expression flickered. The wrap had been made from fabric taken from the last dress Imani's mother had sewn before she died. Camille knew none of that. And she did not care. She tossed it onto a nearby chair. Sentiment does not improve taste. A new voice came from behind her. "I think she looks extraordinary." Camille froze. Julian Ashford stood at the ballroom entrance. He had arrived without announcement, still wearing his dark travel coat over a tuxedo. His gaze went first to Imani, then to the wrap on the chair, then to Camille. "How much did you hear?" Camille asked. "Enough." Her expression changed immediately. "Julian, this is being exaggerated." "Which part?" She arrived dressed inappropriately. Julian looked at Imani. The emerald dress fit her beautifully. Not because it made her smaller, because it did not try to. "She looks appropriate to me." Camille gave a strained laugh. "You just got here, and apparently still understood the dress code faster than you did." Imani looked away to hide the smallest smile. Camille saw it. "You find this funny?" "No. You've been enjoying this all evening. Enjoying being insulted. Enjoying his attention." The ballroom became completely quiet. Julian's face hardened. "Camille. No. Let's finally say it." She pointed toward Imani. "She has been waiting for this." Imani stared at her. "Waiting for what?" "For Julian to notice you." Imani's expression changed. Not embarrassment. Disbelief. "You think I wore a green dress because of your fiancé?" Camille's voice rose. "You always find reasons to be around him." "I manage this house." "You bring him coffee." "I bring your coffee too." Several guests laughed before quickly stopping. Camille turned red. Julian removed his coat and handed it to an attendant. "Apologize to her." Camille stared at him. "What?" "You mocked her body, insulted her job, took something belonging to her mother, and accused her of chasing me. You're taking her side." "I'm taking the side that doesn't require humiliating someone to feel important." Camille's eyes filled with fury. Then the orchestra conductor approached nervously. "Mr. Ashford, we're ready for the opening waltz." The first dance had been reserved for Julian and Camille. Dozens of guests shifted toward the dance floor. Camille straightened immediately. Whatever had happened, she believed the tradition would restore the balance. She extended her hand. Julian looked at it. Then he walked past her. Straight toward Imani. Imani's eyes widened. "Julian." He stopped in front of her and offered his hand. "Dance with me." A whisper moved through the ballroom. Camille looked as though someone had knocked the air from her lungs. Imani did not take his hand. "You're angry." "Yes. So don't use me to punish her." His expression softened. "I'm not." "Then why me?" Julian looked around the ballroom. "Because the first dance tonight is supposed to honor someone who helped make this house what it is." He looked back at her. "And that person isn't Camille." Imani hesitated. Then she placed her hand in his. The orchestra began. Julian guided her onto the floor while Camille stood alone beneath the chandeliers. Imani expected satisfaction. Instead, she noticed fear. Camille was not watching them. She was staring at the emerald wrap on the chair. More specifically, at the tiny gold initials stitched into its corner. MR. Imani felt Julian's hand tighten slightly. "What is it?" She followed Camille's stare. "My mother's initials." Julian stopped dancing. His face had gone pale. "Mara Reed." Imani looked at him. "You knew my mother?" Julian did not answer immediately. Then he whispered the sentence that changed the entire night. "Imani, your mother designed my family's most famous gown." She stared at him. "That's impossible." Julian looked toward Camille. "No." His voice hardened. "What's impossible is that Camille is wearing the stolen original tonight." Imani stopped in the middle of the dance floor. Around them, the orchestra continued for several confused seconds before the conductor slowly lowered his baton. Camille's silver gown shimmered beneath the chandeliers. Julian stared at the narrow gold stitching along its waist. "Mr. Mara Reed. Imani's mother." "That cannot be hers," Imani said. Julian turned toward Camille. "Where did you get that dress?" Camille's expression hardened. "Paris." "Which designer?" "Does it matter?" "Yes." Guests moved closer. Camille folded her arms. "It came from a private collection." Julian stepped toward her. "My grandmother has photographs of this gown from the Ashford Centennial exhibition." Imani looked at him. My mother never told me she worked for your family. She didn't work for us. Julian's grandmother, Eleanor, appeared near the ballroom entrance. She had heard enough to understand what was happening. She worked with us, Eleanor said. Imani turned. The older woman approached slowly. Mara Reed was one of the finest textile artists I ever knew. Imani's eyes filled with confusion. My mother repaired clothes from home. After she disappeared from the design world. Why? Eleanor looked at Camille's gown. Because someone stole her career. The ballroom went completely silent. Eleanor pointed toward the silver fabric. 26 years ago, Mara created that design for the Ashford Centennial Collection. She developed a weaving technique that made the silver threads move like water under light. Julian looked at Imani. The gown became famous. Under whose name? Nobody answered immediately. That was answer enough. Imani turned toward Camille. Whose name is attached to it? Camille lifted her chin. Laurent. Imani's expression changed. Camille's family owned Laurent Atelier, one of the oldest luxury fashion houses in New York. Eleanor continued. Mara submitted 12 designs to Laurent Atelier before the Centennial exhibition. They rejected her. Imani swallowed. Then used them anyway. Yes. Camille shook her head. That is an accusation based on an old woman's memory. Eleanor's eyes sharpened. I wore one of Mara's original dresses. Then show us proof. I intend to. She looked at Julian. The archive room. Camille moved quickly. There is no reason to turn tonight into some ridiculous investigation. Julian looked at her. You were very comfortable investigating Imani's body 5 minutes ago. Camille's face flushed. Eleanor led them upstairs. Imani hesitated. This has nothing to do with me. Eleanor turned. It has everything to do with you. The Ashford archive occupied a climate-controlled room behind the library. Inside were photographs, contracts, handwritten letters, fabric samples, and newspaper clippings spanning nearly a century. Eleanor opened a drawer marked 1998 Centennial Collection. She removed a black and white photograph. A younger Eleanor stood beside a smiling black woman holding a silver gown. Imani's hand flew to her mouth. Her mother. Mara was younger than Imani remembered her, but the smile was unmistakable. On the back, in Eleanor's handwriting, were the words. Mara Reed presenting her completed silver water gown. May 12, 1998. Camille stared at it. That still does not prove the gown I'm wearing is the same one. Eleanor opened another folder. Inside was Mara's original sketch. The neckline. The unusual diagonal waist seam. The hand-stitched silver leaves along the back. Every detail matched Camille's dress. Except one. Imani pointed. The sketch has emerald thread inside the lining. Camille's eyes moved toward the hem of her gown. Julian noticed. Lift the lining. No. Camille. This is humiliating. Imani almost laughed. Interesting choice of word. Camille glared at her. Eleanor called for the estate seamstress. Minutes later, the seamstress carefully examined the inner hem. She found a narrow strip of faded emerald thread sewn beneath the silver lining. And beside it, nearly hidden by later alterations, were the initials. Mara Reed, original sample. Imani stared at her mother's handwriting. Her knees weakened. 4 years, Mara had worked quietly from a small apartment, repairing bridesmaid dresses and school uniforms. She had never complained. Never told Imani she had once designed clothing displayed in museums. Why didn't she tell me? Imani whispered. Eleanor answered softly. Because the lawsuit destroyed her. Camille frowned. What lawsuit? Eleanor opened another file. After Mara accused Laurent Atelier of stealing her work, the company sued her for defamation. They claimed Mara had copied their designs. She could not afford the legal battle. Her contract records disappeared. Her witnesses suddenly changed their statements. And the fashion press branded her unstable. She lost everything, Eleanor said. Imani's eyes burned. My mother spent the rest of her life believing nobody would believe her. I believed her. Then why didn't you help? The question hit Eleanor hard. I tried privately. That isn't what I asked. Eleanor lowered her eyes. At the time, the Ashfords had a partnership with Laurent Atelier. My husband believed publicly supporting Mara would damage both companies. Imani's voice became quiet. So everyone protected the brand. No one answered. While she disappeared, Julian looked ashamed even though he had been a child when it happened. Imani turned toward Camille. Did you know? No. Did your family? Camille looked away. Ask them. Julian noticed the answer. You knew enough to recognize the initials on the wrap. Camille said nothing. You were terrified when you saw MR. Finally she snapped. Fine. Imani went still. My mother told me never to wear anything with Mara Reed's initials in public. Why? Because there were rumors. Rumors? That your mother kept originals. Imani stared at her. Camille continued reluctantly. Laurent Atelier destroyed most of the disputed samples after the lawsuit. Eleanor's face hardened. Most. Camille looked at Imani's emerald wrap. Your mother apparently kept one piece from every original design. Imani touched the fabric. The wrap was made from several small panels stitched together. She had always assumed they were decorative patches. Now she understood. Each section was evidence. Julian took a closer look. One emerald panel carried tiny numbers sewn into the edge. Eleanor whispered, registration numbers. Imani looked at her. For what? Design deposits. Before digital registration, Mara had apparently catalogued each design through dated textile deposits with an independent guild. If the registry still existed, those numbers could prove when Mara created the designs. Camille immediately reached for the wrap. Imani pulled it away. Don't touch it. You have no idea what you're holding. I'm beginning to. Camille's phone rang. She looked at the screen. Her father. She rejected the call. It rang again. Julian noticed. Answer it. No. Answer it. Camille finally did. She put the phone to her ear. Her father did not greet her. His voice was loud enough for Julian and Imani to hear. Why is there a photograph online of you wearing the Reed gown? Camille closed her eyes. Dad. Get out of that house. Now. Imani stepped closer. Put him on speaker. Camille laughed nervously. You don't give me orders. Julian took the phone from her and activated the speaker. Mr. Laurent. Silence. Then Camille's father spoke carefully. Julian. Why are you afraid of Mara Reed's gown? I have no idea what you mean. Imani said, this is Mara Reed's daughter. Another silence. Longer. Then he said something that made Imani's blood run cold. Mara was supposed to destroy those samples. Imani gripped the table. You knew my mother. I knew of her. You ruined her. That is not a conversation for tonight. It became tonight's conversation when your daughter wore my mother's stolen work. His voice hardened. Listen to me carefully. Whatever fabric Mara left behind does not belong to you. Imani stared at the phone. It was my mother's. No. A pause. It belongs to Laurent Atelier under the settlement she signed. Eleanor immediately shook her head. There was no settlement. Imani looked at her. Camille's father went quiet. Then the call disconnected. Julian turned toward Camille. What settlement? I don't know. Eleanor pulled another file from the archive. The original lawsuit ended without settlement. No transfer agreement existed. Which meant Camille's father had just revealed knowledge of a document nobody in the room knew existed. Imani looked down at the emerald wrap. One section felt thicker than the others. She pressed it between her fingers. Something stiff was sewn inside. The seamstress carefully opened the edge. A folded piece of yellowed paper slid onto the table. Imani unfolded it. At the top were the words, Design Rights Transfer Agreement. At the bottom was Mara Reed's signature. But Imani recognized immediately that something was wrong. My mother didn't sign her name like this. Eleanor leaned closer. Imani pointed at the letter R. Mama always looped it backward. This signature did not. Julian read the witness line. His expression changed. The person who had supposedly witnessed Mara signing away every design she created was not a Laurent employee. It was Julian's grandfather, Arthur Ashford. And according to the date on the document, Arthur had supposedly witnessed the signature 3 days after he had already died. Nobody in the archive room spoke for several seconds. The forged agreement lay beneath the white museum lights. Arthur Ashford's signature appeared beside the witness line. The date beneath it was impossible. Arthur had died 3 days earlier. Julian read the date again. Then he looked at his grandmother. "Were you there when grandfather died?" Eleanor's expression changed. "Yes." "Where?" "Geneva." "And Mara?" "In New York." "So there is no possible way he witnessed this?" "No." Imani stared at her mother's forged signature. The discovery should have felt like victory. Instead, it made her angry. For 26 years, people had apparently known enough to manufacture documents, erase records, and frighten Mara into silence. Yet Mara had gone home every night and raised her daughter as though none of it mattered. Imani carefully folded the paper. "I want every document involving my mother copied tonight." Camille laughed bitterly. "You think this automatically makes you rich?" Imani looked at her. "I haven't mentioned money once. You don't need to. That's because money is the only language your family understands." Julian stepped between them. "Camille, leave. This concerns my family too." "That's exactly why you should leave." She looked at him with disbelief. 20 minutes ago, we were supposed to announce our wedding. 20 minutes ago, I didn't know you were wearing stolen work while insulting the daughter of the woman who created it." Camille's face hardened. "You really enjoy making me the villain in front of her." "No," Imani said. Both of them looked at her. "You did that yourself." Camille stared at her for a long moment. Then she removed one diamond earring and placed it on the table. "I'm done being humiliated." Imani almost smiled. "You should probably stop humiliating people, then." Camille walked out. But before the door closed, she looked back at the emerald wrap in Imani's hands. Fear returned to her expression. Imani noticed. So did Julian. "What else does she know?" he asked. Eleanor opened another archival drawer. "Perhaps more than we do." Inside were correspondence files from the year Mara's lawsuit collapsed. Most were routine. Invoices. Exhibition schedules. Press invitations. Then Imani found an envelope addressed to Eleanor. It had never been opened. The return address belonged to Mara Reed. Eleanor stared at it. "I never received this." Julian checked the archive stamp. It entered Ashford House 25 years ago. Imani handed the envelope to Eleanor. "You should open it." Eleanor hesitated. "No." She returned it. "It was meant for me then. It belongs to you now." Imani opened it. Inside was a single page. Mara's handwriting covered both sides. Imani recognized every loop, every slanted T, every backward R. She began reading silently. Halfway down, her expression changed. "What?" Julian stepped closer. Imani read aloud. "Eleanor, I know Arthur did not sign the transfer. I know Laurent Atelier created it after his death. But someone inside Ashford House gave them access to his signature plates." Eleanor gripped the table. Imani continued. "I was offered money to disappear. I refused. 2 days later, someone broke into my apartment and took the original registry book. They missed one thing. I separated the numbered fabric samples before the break-in." She looked at the wrap. The pieces stitched into it were not sentimental scraps. They were the surviving registry samples. Mara had hidden the evidence inside something nobody would consider valuable. Imani kept reading. "If I cannot prove what happened, I am leaving the industry. I will not let my daughter grow up watching powerful people teach me to doubt myself." Her voice weakened. Julian did not interrupt. The final paragraph was shorter. "If you ever read this, ask your husband's attorney why he met with Auguste Laurent on June 17th. Ask who paid him $200,000 the following morning. And do not trust anyone who says this was only about dresses. Imani lowered the page. Julian frowned. What else could it have been about? Eleanor looked toward the locked drawers on the opposite wall. The Centennial Collection was not only fashion. She walked toward them. Arthur used the exhibition to announce a new charitable manufacturing initiative. Mara's textile process was the centerpiece. What kind of initiative? Imani asked. Independent manufacturing contracts for small women-owned workshops. Julian understood first. If Mara retained her design rights, she retained the licensing rights to the manufacturing method. Yes. Eleanor unlocked the drawer. And Laurent Atelier could not control it. Inside was an old financial prospectus. The numbers made the motive clear. Mara's weaving process had later become the basis for a specialty reflective fabric used in luxury evening wear. Laurent Atelier had earned millions licensing variations of it. But that was not the shocking part. The process had eventually been adapted for theater curtains, emergency clothing, and reflective safety textiles. Its current licensing portfolio was worth hundreds of millions. Imani sat down. My mother repaired hems for $20. Nobody answered. She spent years worried about rent. Julian looked sick. All while companies were profiting from something she created. Eleanor whispered, I should have found that letter. Imani turned toward her. Yes. The answer was not cruel. That made it worse. Eleanor lowered her eyes. I let my husband handle the lawsuit because he told me protecting the family partnership would eventually give us enough influence to help Mara privately. And did it? No. Then don't ask me to make you feel better about that. I won't. Julian watched Imani. He had seen investors shout across boardrooms without making him uncomfortable. Imani's controlled anger did. Because it was deserved. Mason entered. Julian, we have a problem. He held a tablet. Camille had left the estate. But she had not gone home. Her car had been tracked to Laurent Atelier's private archive facility across the river. Julian immediately understood. She's going after the registry records. Imani stood. Then we go. No. She turned to him. No. Julian gestured toward her mother's samples. If Laurent knows you have these, they may come after you. Imani folded the wrap around her shoulders. They already came after my mother 26 years ago. This isn't about proving courage. Good. Because I don't need to prove mine. Eleanor interrupted. There may be another way. She opened the prospectus. The original Fabric Registration Authority still existed under a new name, the Metropolitan Textile Guild. Its secure archive was only 4 blocks from Laurent's facility. If Mara deposited samples there, Eleanor said, the physical registry book may have been stolen, but the guild would have kept duplicate intake photographs. Imani looked at the numbered threads in the wrap. Then we verify them before Camille can destroy anything. They left Ashford House through the private garage. No press. No ballroom guests. Only Julian, Imani, Eleanor, and Mason. The Metropolitan Textile Guild occupied 3 floors of an old brick building between 2 modern towers. At nearly midnight, the director initially refused to open the archive. Then Imani placed the emerald wrap on the desk. The woman stopped arguing. She recognized the numbering system. These are pre-digital deposit samples. Can you trace them? Possibly. They entered a temperature-controlled storage room. The director searched microfilm records while Imani waited beside Julian. You don't have to stay, she said. Yes, I do. Because you feel guilty? Partly. That's not a good reason. Then I'll give you another. She looked at him. I care about what happens to you. Imani's expression softened for half a second. Then she stepped away. Be careful with that. With what? Caring. Why? Because tonight you embarrassed Camille publicly and asked me to dance. Right now, you're angry. I'm angry. Everyone is emotional. I know. Do you? Yes. He kept his voice calm. That's why I'm not asking you for anything. Imani studied him. That was the first answer he could have given that did not irritate her. The director called them over. I found Mara Reed. On the screen appeared a dated intake photograph from April 1998. Mara stood beside 12 fabric samples. Each bore the same numbers hidden inside Imani's wrap. The registration preceded Laurent Atelier's claimed creation date by 7 months. Eleanor covered her mouth. Imani stared at her mother's face. Proof. Real proof. Then the director enlarged the intake form. At the bottom were 2 depositor names. Mara Reed. And another designer. Samuel Brooks. Imani froze. My father. Julian looked at her. You said your father died when you were young. He did. Was he a designer? No. Imani's voice became uncertain. He repaired stage equipment. The director opened another record. Samuel Brooks was not listed as a designer. He was listed as technical co-developer. The reflective weave had required a mechanical tensioning system. Samuel had built it. Imani stared at the screen. Her parents had created the process together. And neither had ever told her. Then Mason's phone rang. He listened. His expression sharpened. Camille entered Laurent's archive 12 minutes ago. Julian asked, Police? On the way. Mason looked at Imani. She used an Ashford security credential. Whose? Yours. Julian went still. My access. The credential was copied from your office. A notification appeared on Mason's tablet. A fire alarm had been triggered inside Laurent Atelier's archive. Imani stood. She's burning it. The guild director shook her head. If the duplicate records are here, burning Laurent's archive won't erase ownership. Maybe she isn't trying to erase ownership. Everyone looked at Imani. She remembered her mother's letter. Do not trust anyone who says this was only about dresses. What if there's something else in that archive? Julian's phone rang. Camille. He answered. Her breathing was frantic. Julian, you need to come here. Why? My father lied to me. A loud crash sounded behind her. What happened? I found the original lawsuit file. Then get out and give it to police. No. Her voice broke. Because Mara Reed wasn't the only person Laurent Atelier destroyed. Imani took the phone. What did you find? Camille went silent. Then she whispered, Your father didn't die in an accident. Imani stopped breathing. Camille continued. Samuel Brooks discovered they were using his tensioning mechanism without authorization. He threatened to testify for Mara. Imani's fingers tightened around the phone. My father died when a theater rig collapsed. I know. How? Another crash. Camille began coughing. There's an internal report. Laurent engineers inspected the rig 2 days before it failed. Imani felt the room tilt. What does the report say? It says someone replaced the primary locking assembly. Julian's face changed. Imani whispered, Who? Camille answered. My father authorized the replacement. The line went silent. Camille. Nothing. Then a man's voice came through the phone. Auguste Laurent. Imani Reed. She had never heard him speak before, but she recognized the calm arrogance immediately. You have something that belongs to my family. Imani looked at the emerald wrap. No. Your family has spent 26 years pretending my parents' work belonged to you. Auguste laughed softly. Bring me the samples. Where is Camille? My daughter became sentimental. Julian grabbed the phone. If you hurt her. Auguste cut him off. You cancelled your wedding in front of half of New York society. Do not pretend concern now. She is still a person. So was Mara Reed, Imani said. Silence. For the first time, Auguste did not answer immediately. Imani continued. So was Samuel Brooks. You know very little about your parents. Then tell me. Bring the wrap. Why? Because your mother hid more than registration numbers inside it. Imani looked down. The seamstress had opened only one section. There were 11 more. Auguste lowered his voice. Your father documented everything before he died. A click sounded. Then the call ended. The guild director placed the wrap beneath an examination lamp. One by one, She illuminated the stitched panels. Inside the ninth piece, something rectangular appeared. Not paper. Film. A narrow photographic negative had been sewn between two layers of fabric. The director carefully removed it. They scanned it. An image appeared on the screen. Samuel Brooks stood inside a theater workshop beside Auguste Laurent. Between them was the mechanical tensioning device. And in Samuel's hand was a newspaper. The date was 2 days before his death. On the back of the photograph, faint handwriting had been scratched into the negative sleeve. Imani recognized her father's block letters. If anything happens to me, Auguste changed the lock. Julian looked at Imani. The stolen gown was no longer the biggest secret in the room. Her mother's career had been destroyed. Her father's death had been disguised as an accident. And Camille was now trapped inside the archive controlled by the man connected to both. Imani folded the emerald wrap around her shoulders. Call the police. Mason already had. She looked at Julian. And get the car. Where are we going? To Laurent Atelier. Julian stared at her. Imani's voice remained steady. My mother spent 26 years being told to disappear. She picked up the photograph. My father died trying to make sure the truth didn't. Then she walked toward the elevator. Tonight, neither of them gets erased again. Police reached Laurent Atelier seconds before Julian's car. Smoke poured from the archive windows. Inside, Auguste Laurent stood beside a burning records cabinet while Camille was trapped behind a locked glass door. Imani held up the photograph of her father. It's over. Auguste laughed. One photograph proves nothing. It proves enough to reopen his death. Camille suddenly shouted through the glass. He recorded everything. She pointed toward a metal case beneath Auguste's desk. Mason forced the office door while firefighters broke the glass and pulled Camille to safety. Inside the case were Samuel's original engineering notes, Mara's design registrations, payments to the attorney who forged the transfer agreement, and the inspection report proving Auguste had ordered the theater lock replaced before Samuel died. Auguste lunged for the case. Julian stopped him. Police restrained Auguste before he could destroy the evidence. Months later, Auguste Laurent was convicted of fraud, evidence destruction, conspiracy, and crimes connected to Samuel Brooks's death. Imani Reed and Samuel Brooks were publicly recognized as the true creators of the reflective textile system, and their family received the royalties stolen from them for decades. Camille admitted she had known pieces of the truth but had protected her family's reputation. She publicly apologized to Imani and disappeared from society after cutting ties with Laurent Atelier. Imani used part of her parents' recovered fortune to create a design fund for overlooked black artists. At its opening gala, she wore the emerald dress again. No tray. No staff badge. Julian approached as the orchestra began. You once asked me why you. Imani smiled. I remember. Because you never needed permission to take up space. He offered his hand. Dance with me. This time, Imani took it immediately. Yes. And beneath the chandeliers, wearing the dress someone once mocked, she danced proudly inside the legacy her parents had fought to protect.